Podcast, we've still got thoughts on that Florida State game. We're going to dive more into that, talk a little bit about Taj Harris being out and what that means for the wide receiver position going forward, and get to your Twitter thoughts as well. It's all coming up.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We welcome you on in and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of the day. Every single weekday, we are here with you guys. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube now. You can see our faces there and our game breakdowns on YouTube as well. Just subscribe to the page wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Also follow the show on Twitter at LO_Syracuse. Today's episode brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need. Just visit rockauto.com and make sure to tell them that Locked On sent you. So we had so many thoughts on Florida State yesterday that we're basically just...
We might get yelled at yesterday for our length on the show yesterday.
Yeah, well, look, that's what it called for. Taj Harris had to announce his decision right after the game. There was a lot of stuff going on yesterday, and we've still got to flesh out some Taj thoughts today, which we will get to. But I know you were sort of confident in Dino's decision-making with the fourth downs. And there were some Twitter thoughts that we'll probably get to as well, that people were not for that first fourth down in particular, where he decided to go for it on 4th and 2. It was from the Florida State 26. It was the second Syracuse drive of the game, because remember, they went 3 and out in the first drive. They're down 3-0 at that stage in the first quarter. And you were a proponent for going for it there on 4th and 2, right?
1,000%. I thought Dino on his fourth downs did a really good job in terms of the decision tree and what the game called for at that point in time. That second one, I think, is a no-brainer. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement. You go for it there.
Yeah.
Late in the game, I mean, you're on the inch line. You're knocking on the door. You've got Sean Tucker. You've got Garrett Schrader. You've got red zone tools. You just got to use them. It didn't work out, but I think the point still stands that, okay, you take your losses there. The first one was a lot more up for debate, I think, among the fan base and among us too. But first, before I get into my rationale of why I liked it, what was your thought on the decision making to go for it on 4th?
I probably would have kicked it there, and that's just because I didn't feel confident that we were going to get the 4th down. Like, as I was watching the play, I remember thinking, I just don't have a good vibe here. Now, that doesn't mean everything. Sometimes you're going to get it when you don't feel good about it, but it would have been a 43-yard field goal. Andre Schmidt,
45. 45.
Okay, it was from the 26, right? I think I
28.
saw 26. Okay.
Yeah.
The numbers might be slightly off, but I saw 26 somewhere. So anyway, 43, 45. In that range, it's about the same anyway. Schmidt on the season from 40 to 49 yards is 1 for 2. In his career from that distance, he's 14 for 21. He goes on, he misses an extra point in this game. I think that was mostly on the hold, though. Watching back the replay of that, it looked like the laces weren't really lined up. But he hasn't been great this year. There might have been some wind to the face, if I remember correctly, on that kick. So it's not like a sure thing.
I mean, 45 yards with the wind working against you, that's not a great recipe for success. In general, in college, 45-yard field goals, I looked this up, 51% is the average hit rate.
But he's a former Lou Groza Award winner.
But he's gotten worse.
We got to use him.
That's the thing is he's gotten worse. And another factor with Andre Schmidt is this: he hasn't attempted an outdoor field goal from 40 plus yards since 2019. And if you look at the outdoor component of this, he's 3 of 6 outdoors in the 40 to 49 yard range. So he's about a 50% field goal kicker from this range here. Now, let's run the math real quick. What do you trust more? A kicker who's about 50% from this range outdoors with the wind coming in at him from 45 yards out. Do you trust him? Do you trust that? Or do you trust Sean Tucker to go get you 2 yards? I lean in the camp of Sean Tucker getting the 2 yards.
I
some
think
sort of offensive play.
I would have felt better than 50% that he was going to make the kick. Because like I said, he's 14 for 21 in his career. 14 for 21 is better than 50%. That's what he is in his career from that. But
this is a different beast out here when you move outdoors with a kicker.
Okay, so I mean, I don't
He's about
have the exact
50%.
math, but you drop that down a little, it's still above 50%.
It's 50%. He's 3 of 6 from 40 plus yards in his career outdoors.
Yeah, okay, but 40 plus yards includes a 50-yard kick. I saw it as a 43-yard kick when I went back and watched it. So that's a makeable kick, in my opinion, for a guy that is one of the best kickers in the country at once upon a time. And I know he's dropped off a little, but he just hit a game winner last week. That was his last kick. He nailed it with plenty of distance. He should be able to make that kick. If you ask him to go out there, you're expecting him to make it.
So I looked at it from also a running standpoint of, listen, I didn't like the play call, really. I don't think there are a number of things that were wrong with that play call. First of all, you're getting movement, but you're not really doing anything with the movement. I think it was Quealy that was on the pre-snap motion across the formation. I don't think Schrader also made the right read either. I think he actually probably should have kept it when you go back and look at the replay of that play, because it was a read option type of play as well. But you look at the power success that Syracuse has had this year. 71% is their power success. And we have Anthony DeBundo on to give us all these sort of numbers.
Yeah.
Power success. So what that is third or fourth down and 2 or less. Syracuse is converting that 71% of the time right now. So by the numbers there, I like the chances of getting that 70%, getting those 2 yards. And it was a short 2 also. It was more like a yard and a half that Sean Tucker had to get on that. I'm just saying.
So did you feel like they were going to get it when they lined up and were going for it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got Sean Tucker. From what we saw later on the game with Garrett Schrader, he's got the ability to use his legs. You've got a good running game. I think that there was a much better chance of them getting that than Andre Schmidt nailing that field goal. But on top of that, I mean, for everyone clamoring that Sean Tucker should wear number 44, why are you upset with this decision? Because if you've got a guy who you think is that good where you want to bring a number down from the rafters, you should be confident enough to give him the ball to get you 2 yards on a fourth down.
So if we want to bring numbers into it, and you said 71% on the power success rate, they're also historically not good on fourth down.
They're not.
The last couple of years. And I would say if you're going to bring in, elements for Andre Schmidt's kick when you're factoring in percentages there, then let's bring in the fact that we're on the road and fans are going nuts, and it's tougher to get a fourth down on the road than at home as well. So it's not those numbers this season, they played every game at home except for Ohio this year, which I don't know how many of those plays came from Ohio, but regardless, you're probably getting some help when you're at home versus on the road when you're trying to get a third and short or a fourth and short type of situation.
No doubt. Yeah. Listen, I don't think this decision made or broke the game.
No,
not at all.
But it's fun to talk about.
The other element of being on the road is you're on the road. You're already at a disadvantage, okay? You have a chance to make a statement here, because if you go out and get that touchdown, then you win the game, okay? By getting that field goal, let's say they make the field goal, okay? You give yourself a chance to win because you theoretically would have a tie game at the end of the game. Although I think it's very foolish to say a play made in the first quarter of this game dictated the outcome of the entire game. Again, we went through it yesterday. There's a laundry list of things that were more important than this fourth down decision, or really either fourth down decision to go for it.
Right.
So, but in terms of the math, everything checks out that Dino Babers is making the right calls on fourth down. It just comes down to, because I believe the way that it'll work in the hierarchy is Dino's going to be the one that makes the call to go for it on fourth down. It's then up to Sterling Gilbert to get some sort of play called down. And that's another thing is I think the tree of, Dino making a decision, then going to Sterling and then going back to the field, that's taking too long. And that's why you're seeing some of these timeouts burned in critical situations. And then you're left with no ammo at the end when you really needed it at the end of that first half.
Right. And what I will say too is we're just very predictable on fourth down plays right now, because let's be honest, Schrader's not going to throw the ball on fourth down. Right. It doesn't seem like it. I haven't seen it so far. And what they're doing is too much of like on that fourth down play in the red zone where Schrader, you could say maybe got in, but he like a play action, and then he starts in the shotgun, and it was like a very slow developing play action RPO type play. And by the time he's actually trying to get towards the end zone, Florida State's already kind of pushed back our offensive line. And Florida State's just going to beat us in the trenches on a fourth and short more time than not. So that's partially why I just didn't like going for it there, because you could also make the argument that you're on the road. Let's make sure you get the points here when you can get them.
Now, another thing, and you'll appreciate this as a Patriots fan too. Last season, remember the Cam Newton play that they would run? The one where
I was thinking about that a lot this past game. Yeah.
That's something you get Chris Elmore as that back. You motion him left to right with you. Or you don't even need that. You can have Elmore as one of those like offset tight ends, or even go with a 2-back formation and you flip the guys where need be. You have Elmore as a lead blocker on one of those while still having the threat of Schrader or having the threat of Tucker as a potential handoff too. You're going to have a lot of teams guessing, and you're going to have a lot of success on some of these short plays, short yardage situations like this, where I would feel really good. But again, this is where you saw the errors with the play calling and the formations that this team had in that first half. It's because they didn't use Chris Elmore to their best abilities a lot early on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they should have done the Cam type play when it was that 4th down in the red zone, because
in the red zone,
I'd get rid of the play action part of it, because it's not really fooling anyone. It takes too long to develop. But all right, let's hit a quick break.
Well, real quick.
Yeah.
When Garrett did go over the top for that one touchdown that he had, that was perfectly done. That that'll be there with a lot of places. Now, sometimes the defense is going to get privy to it, and literally they're going to try to time the snap and jump over top of the center and try to punch that ball out too.
Yeah, it's a little risky to do that sometimes. Yeah, I mean, you can lose a fumble.
But at the end of the day, I'm talking from a defensive standpoint, it can also be a little risky too. But in essence, not really, because what's an offside's going to get or an encroachment going to do? Not you're moving inches.
Right. At that point, it's not doing much. All right, college football fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this, and I know you guys will too. They have some great bets for Syracuse on there every single game. It's kind of fun to do the over-unders on the Prize Picks site. We try to incorporate some of those into our prop shop. Actually, Ty, funny story. Before the game, once it came out that Taj Harris was not playing, I went to Prize Picks. I tried to get an under in right under the tag, but I think Prize Picks took it off the board, which they're on it. They're smart. That would have been kind of slimy by me, but I went for it anyway. But there's tons of Syracuse props out there on Prize Picks, tons of college football props as well. You can combine different sports. It's really cool. And be sure to use our promo code LOCKEDON. That'll get you a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Basically, you pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It is just you versus the projected numbers. Don't forget that promo code is locked on, all one word. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com today, or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy.
This episode also brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer with only the brands that their warehouse happens to carry? You've got computers, you've got phones, and they all have access to rockauto.com. Save time and money when you use Rock Auto. Why spend 30, 50, maybe even 100% more for the same exact parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and the prices are reliably low for every single customer. They've got everything you need, and they've got a super easy-to-use website to find the solution to all your auto part needs. Tim uses them. I use them. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and be sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Again, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Check them out, rockauto.com.
All right, so speaking of Taj Harris, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, his decision to enter the portal, kind of a bummer. Regardless of what you think about how good of a player he is or how much that affects Syracuse, one thing's for sure is the wide receiver position going forward's not in a great spot. And there's not a ton of talent there. And maybe there is some talent, but it's underdeveloped talent, and it's inexperienced. And you got Damian Alford, who was banged up in the last game. Don't exactly know his status, but
feels like that's happened a couple times with him, where he'll start a game, doesn't finish a game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's all injury or what.
I wouldn't say it's recurring or whatnot, but it's very early in his development. But it's just something that let's put on people's radar right now.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to a lot of still like 4 wide receiver sets, and the guys out there are Devon Cooper, who again has made some plays. Like I talked about that yesterday, but it's still just not like there's not an it guy there. There's not a lot of guys that are getting separation. I guess this means Anthony Quealy is going to have to step up to the plate more. He caught a touchdown in this last game, but overall, I am a little concerned about the wide receiver position without Taj Harris there.
Right. This is going to have to be a run-first offense, as it has been all year. And that's the scary thing is, let's say the running game isn't going early on and some team gets out to a 10-point lead on you. Might be tough to come back later on. 10, 14 points. And guess what? This upcoming game against Wake Forest, they've got an offense that can click. There's a couple offenses in this ACC that can really click. And then sometimes you don't have the defensive help on the back end with their team. So maybe they're not as good as some people think. But I look at this receiving position now. I'm excited. I'm scared. I've got all sorts of different emotions going through me when I think about the wide receiver position, just because the guys who you expected to be taking jumps this year, Quealy, Courtney Jackson, haven't done a whole heck of a lot to inspire a lot of confidence. But you've got guys like Alford and Devon Cooper, who I think are a little bit better than we may have anticipated heading into this season.
Yeah.
And it's sort of that meeting in the middle right now where we're at.
Right. And the other thing is, if you're Anthony Quealy, how do you take a jump when you got 7 total passes against Liberty? You got Garrett Schrader in such a run-heavy offense. Like, Quealy's not catching that many passes. He's not popping off the chart statistically. I don't necessarily think he's playing worse. He maybe isn't playing better than he was last year, which is probably kind of what we're talking about, where you'd expect him to maybe take a little.
And your role's changing too a lot. I mean, you're going from wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1. You're going to get different sorts of coverages keyed in on you. I mean, if I'm any sort of defense going up against Syracuse the rest of the way here, I'm not worried about the passing game one bit. Yeah. I really am not.
And okay, so that's the concerning thing. You could look at, all right, we scored 30 points in 3 quarters, Florida State on the road. We almost won that game. We beat Liberty the week before with Garrett Schrader. Things are looking up. But you could also say these are teams that haven't had film on Schrader. As we go deeper into this season, Syracuse is going to only become increasingly more predictable. And we're very one-dimensional. There's no doubt about that right now. So maybe the playbook expands as Schrader grows in the offense and gets more knowledge. But at the same time, like, running it up the gut with Sean Tucker, those zone runs, it's going to be pretty easy for an ACC defense to defend it. And it goes back to what we said about the 4th down plays. Like, you, me, everyone in the stadium knows what's happening when they have a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2. It's either Garrett Schrader or Sean Tucker getting the ball. They're not passing. Right. It's pretty predictable.
It'll be pretty interesting too, because I think what you're going to see a lot of teams do against Syracuse now, especially on what would be the defense's left side. So it would be the strong side that Garrett Schrader is going to roll out to. You're going to see those edge rushers and those defensive ends and even some linebackers set themselves a little extra wide. And they're going to be able to pack the box too, because you can get to Syracuse. Let's say that Schrader does drop back to pass. What have we seen this entire time? You can get to Syracuse with 4 guys rushing, drop a couple guys back in coverage, have a couple linebackers there, 1 to spy Schrader, 1 to have an eye on Tucker as well.
Right.
I'm interested to see what the counterpunch is for Syracuse, because there might not be a lot that they can do because of your limitations at receiver, because of your limitations with Schrader as a pocket passer. There's going to be, this offense is going to have to take some sort of step. Garrett Schrader's still going to have to take some sort of step in developing as a thrower of the football.
Yeah, it feels like they need a trick play or something to beat a Wake or a Clemson in these.
But that's the thing is, who do you trust on this team to run some sort of trick play?
Yeah, Taj
like you don't have that. Like Taj is gone.
Right.
Nykeem Johnson was a guy who could do that for you every once in a while. He's gone. There's really no trick plays that can be run. I mean, maybe a flea flicker, but then again, you're relying on Schrader to be a pocket passer. There's not a lot of creativity that you can have.
Yeah, like Dino has also kind of shot down trick plays the more that he's gotten into his tenure here at Syracuse. I think he said something recently on a coach's show where he was like, you only do that if you know that you probably can't win the game or you really need it, which he could argue maybe we're at that stage with the Wake or Clemson, but I think I saw the first line is like -7 for Wake. Like, it's a winnable game still. Wake's just looks really good on offense, which scares me. But in order to move the ball, they've got to find a way to continue to get Schrader outside the pocket, and they got to use the weapons they have. Like Luke Benson, I don't know if he's healthy right now. Once he does get healthy, use him, because he's now one of our best pass catchers, one of our best playmakers in the open field. Making people.
I'm going to say this: he's not one of. He is the best pass catcher that this team has, and that's the thing is people don't realize that because he isn't given the ball. But here's the beauty of what you can do with Schrader now. and Luke Benson. And you see this a lot on Sundays, and you saw it actually with Florida State a number of times. They had that one tight end. I'm trying to remember what his name is. It was like Cooper or something
Kelton,
like that.
Right? Oh, no, McDonald or something, right?
Something like that. Yeah. Whatever it is. That unimportant, but you would see a number of times he'd come across a formation, chip a guy, and then bleed out for some sort of pass. That's what you can do now with Schrader. You can roll him out to the right, have Benson as that right side tight end in the 12 formation with Chris Elmore back there as well. You'll have Benson chip off a guy, and then you can have him bleed out, because that's what you can do now. There's a lot of creativity to be had with Garrett Schrader and a tight end. Garrett Schrader and the tight end position is a match made in heaven right now. And we'll see if Sterling and Dino decide to use it, because that's going to be the most important pass catcher on the Syracuse team moving forward.
Yeah, they used Abdul Adams a little bit in the pass catching game. Keep doing that. If you want to do the two running backs on either side, I'm fine with that, because let's face it, Benson and Adams are two of your better players now without Taj and maybe Alford hurt, that you want to get them on the field as much as possible, and you want to get them the ball as much as possible. So hopefully Benson's healthy. But anyways, want to remind you guys that BetOnline.ag is back and better than ever for the football season. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Got a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests. BetOnline continues to be that number one source for everything football. You can head to their website on a mobile device today, totally free to sign up, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Some serious savings when you use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that 50% welcome bonus. That means you can put down $100, you get $50 of free play when you use that promo code LOCKEDON. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. Just go to betonline.ag, where the games start.
You know what the biggest hassle is day-to-day, Tim? It's picking something to wear based on whether or not you're going to sweat throughout the day. That's a hassle that you don't need in your life, and that's where SweatBlock comes in. You know, there are very few things that are more embarrassing in life than just pitting out. You just got the sweat stains working. Don't pick your outfit based on what your perspiration might be like throughout the day. Instead, use SweatBlock, because this is something that is going to completely change the way you go about your life. You apply it once, maybe twice a week, and you're good to go for the entirety of the week. I know it sounds a little too good to be true, but seriously, just once or twice a week, and you're good to go. You wash, you wake up, you're good to go about your day, all that guaranteed. So if you or someone you love is dealing with this, have them check out SweatBlock today. It was featured on the Rachel Ray Show, all that stuff. So get it today, 20% off at sweatblock.com. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON or find them on Amazon and CVS.
All right, time to get into some Twitter thoughts now. There are plenty of people that tweeted at us after the game, and we always do a post after each game saying, what were your thoughts on the game? And then we read some of the best ones. So be on the lookout for that at our Twitter page at LO_Syracuse each game. We'll start with Shea MVP season, which I'm assuming he's an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. He's got the picture of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on there. So didn't know there was a whole lot of
that's an interesting crossover.
Yeah, or maybe Kentucky. I don't know. But anyway, he said, offense was great. FSU is better than the record says, especially offensively, and we can win games in conference. I guess that brings up the question, did you think that Florida State played better than you thought they would in this game?
I think you saw the talent shine a little. Yeah. Like, you saw guys defensively for them that were a little bit better, a little bit faster, especially in the front four, too. I mean, Jermaine Johnson was a problem all game long. I thought Chris Elmore actually
NFL highlight reel that game. Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. He can just slap that up there.
I think Chris Elmore did some really good things on him, though, in terms of some blocking. Did. I mean, there were some times where he was picking him up as a tight end, and Johnson probably thought, you know what, I've got a one-on-one with a tight end here. Listen, that's not a tight end. That's a guy who's 300 pounds. Although I will say Chris Elmore does look a little bit slimmer, but that's a guy who he's got some strength to him right there. That's a former nose tackle that he was going up against.
Right. Yeah, that Cooper guy, I think he was 91. I might have his name wrong, but he was a beast. I mean, huge dude that was like making tackles in the open field as well. They definitely have talent. I think they played about as good as I thought they would. The thing is, Jordan Travis played a quarterback. I didn't entirely expect that. He's like Schrader. I mean, he couldn't throw the ball at all. Actually, probably worse than Schrader. And they still were able to move down the field a couple times just because of their running game. So it was kind of frustrating. It was pretty similar type of offenses where pretty one-dimensional, and they just hit a couple home run plays on us in the second half, which hurt.
Right. And they had that one set. They would go with 11 personnel where they'd load up 3 or 4 receivers on one side, and then occasionally they'd have one on the other side. And when they tripped them up on the left side, they found a lot of things. And I can't remember who their play caller was. I want to say his last name was Whittingham. But he did a really good job at seeing, because he established it early on in the game and was looking at how Syracuse's defense was going to respond to certain things. And then he would hit seams. He would hit some screens. He'd hit some stuff over the middle. He found ways to create big plays. And that is part of an offensive play caller knowing the limitations of his quarterback. He knew the limitations that Jordan Travis had, but he knew that he could get a couple of big chunk plays out of that formation, and he really utilized it late in the game.
All right, another thought here from Robert Becker. He says, Dino is such a bad coach. Should be 5-0. His decision-making is so suspect. I don't think we should be 5-0. The thing with Dino,
I don't think so either.
He wasn't good at the start of the year. I think he really coached a pretty bad game against Rutgers. But I feel like we can't be too harsh on him because he went to Garrett Schrader and made that tough call not a lot of coaches would have made. And maybe you could say, oh, it was an easier call than you're making it out to be. But also, like, during this game, if we had done a Twitter poll in the first quarter, I would say, 80% would have wanted DeVito on our Twitter. Like, only the true Garrett Schrader diehard believers were still, the Hive. And he stuck with him. And look, we played 2 of the better games we've seen from Syracuse in a while with him at quarterback. So, and also we talked about his decision-making earlier, maybe the first 4th down, a little questionable. I don't really care too much though, because it was in the first quarter. I'm not going to say that cost us the game. I didn't have a problem with his decision-making. I had more of a problem with the play calling, which falls on Sterling Gilbert.
Right. And that's the thing too, is you can say, okay, he's only seen Garrett Schrader play in 2 real games, right? Like, we're going to throw the Rutgers game out. We're going to throw the Albany game out to a degree because those weren't real Garrett Schrader experiences. One's against an FCS team. One was a 2-3 drive sample size that he got against Rutgers. But that's not an excuse. You signed Garrett Schrader. What was that, back in December? I remember it was during that Buffalo basketball game. You signed Garrett Schrader back in December. You have had almost an entire year now to put together a game plan that's going to work for Garrett Schrader. So there's no excuses here from an offensive play calling standpoint. You've known what you've had at the quarterback position for quite some time now.
Yeah, I guess you could make the case they had to have a Tommy DeVito game plan as well, and they had, but I think it's more also that Schrader just doesn't have a great knowledge of a complex offense yet. Like Dino has said in the past, it takes 2 years and 4 games or whatever until you learn my offense. And remember, he was targeting that year 3, game 4. There was some specific game, which was dumb. And look, Schrader's on game 3 as a starter, maybe like week 7 of true practice and learning the offense. So the good news is he's probably only going to get better, and the playbook's only going to get wider as we go into the season.
Well, the thing is, too, is with Garrett Schrader, you can simplify the hell out of this playbook. I mean, we say it every single time we hop on the mic here for this show. Cut the playbook in half, cut the field in half, roll him out of the pocket. You don't need all of this pocket stuff with him. Because guess what? His ability to get outside the pocket actually created that Anthony Quealy touchdown. And you may be thinking to yourself, wasn't he in the pocket when he did that? Yes, he was. But when you go back and freeze the tape there, okay, and they did this, and I noticed this too. They didn't bring this up on the broadcast, but when you freeze that play, you can see all the defensive backs on the right side are hips turned to the right sideline because they think Garrett's going to roll out and all the momentum and all the shift is going to be to the right side. They're essentially playing for a third, maybe a quarter of the field. Meanwhile, you've got Anthony Quealy drifting across the formation. Schrader hangs in the pocket, and I mean, he's wide ass open. That was the easiest throw Garrett Schrader will have to make in his career right there. And it's because he established his ability to get outside the pocket and be a threat. That way, every single defensive back, every single linebacker was looking that way. And he didn't go that way, and he created a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Schrader was a good runner, but he really impressed me running the football in this game. Like, he's quick. He got in the open field a couple times, and it
Gotta
doesn't
learn to
look
slide.
like super fast, but I mean,
Yeah.
Florida State was not.
It's one of
catching
those
up.
things. It's almost like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry doesn't seem fast, right? But he just
Yeah.
kind of picks up and has that steady momentum going with him that lets him outrun a couple guys here or there. He's also strong too. Both
Right.
guys, that is, as runners. I will say though, like getting him out of the pocket and seeing Chris Elmore ahead, getting ready to block for him is a thing
Yeah.
of beauty. It's a thing
Yeah,
of
there
beauty
was that
because
one bootleg where it was awesome. Yeah.
it's going to be there every single time. And eventually you're going to be able to have some handoffs because that in that second half, there was a succession of plays where I think Sean Tucker had an 8-yard run, 9-yard run, 17-yard run, something like that.
Yeah.
That was all
Was it when they
created.
did the same play like 3 times in a row?
Yes.
You remember
Mhm.
that? Yeah.
That was all created off of the fact that Garrett Schrader established himself in the run. And they were, as a defense, looking for him to roll out, do some sort of bootleg, and then you have to defend the
Sure.
pass, you have to defend the run. There's just so much going on. They can keep defenses on their toes this entire game when you've got a running back as good as Sean Tucker and you've got a quarterback who knows how to utilize his strengths when he's out of the pocket.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point in the season, a couple people were like, DeVito's a better runner than Schrader, maybe, but it's
I was,
pretty
and listen,
clear.
hand up, I was one of those guys. I was wrong.
Yeah, I can't
was
remember.
100% wrong.
Right. The guy was put at wide receiver at Mississippi State for a reason. Like, he is pretty quick in the open field, and he's strong as well, and he's a super athlete. So anyway, that's going to wrap up the Tuesday episode. We thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every single weekday. We'll be back Wednesday morning to drop one in your podcast feeds. It's free wherever you get it. You can also check us out on YouTube and at Twitter. Our Twitter page is at @LO_Syracuse. And we'll probably have some more football thoughts tomorrow, maybe crunch some PFF numbers. And then also I think we're going to sneak in some basketball. We try to work in some basketball on our Wednesday shows. So be on the lookout for that and any other news that comes out. We are here to keep you updated in the Syracuse sports world. But we will talk to you guys